Hello everyone, this is Leonard Ulrich. I want to clarify and amplify the remarks I made in my previous video, Nuclear War in Yemen. First of all the footage shown in my first video was from 2015. I did not want to imply that the footage was from 2019. I thought that this would be obvious given that I put a portion of the article from Veterans Today on the screen which indicated that the publishers first released their article in 2015. I am now making this point very clear. All four clips appear to be of the same explosion. Let's put them side by side, and I'll do my best to synchronize them. The fact that we have not one, but four recordings of the same phenomenon from four different perspectives makes this critical piece of video in question much more difficult to fake. Some people claim that if the explosion recorded in Sana'a, Yemen in 2015 was a nuclear event, then it would have fried the camera and the operator as well. This claim is simply not true. Don't think Hiroshima or Nagasaki. The United States military tested the so-called Davy Crockett nuclear munition that could be carried by one man and marched troops into the area that had just been nuked over 50 years ago. Still, good questions remain as to the clips I included in last week's video. Questions like, how do we know that the scintillations or sparkles or noise in the video was not the result of munitions going off when what I called a nuclear explosion occurred? That question can be answered with a different video clip showing all kinds of munitions going off in all kinds of directions. As you can see, this is not the phenomenon we witnessed in last week's clip. So, what did we witness in last week's clip? Well, I've since learned a lot more about what we've seen, and it all revolves around depleted uranium munitions, which explain why we do not see a flash associated with nuclear bombs in the explosion I showed last week. I prepared a few more clips for your consideration, including clips that go back to 9/11 in an effort to explain the evidence of what we saw in that event, as well as clips that clearly will answer the claim of, well, if what you say is true, then more qualified people would be talking about it. I'm Leonard Ulrich.
This film was taken shortly after VJ Battery was first commissioned and shows the situation at that time, before any valid assessment of the potential hazards associated with firing depleted uranium projectiles had been made.
He is a 9/11 survivor, the last person out of the World Trade Center North Tower. Well, on September 11th, William Rodriguez saved an estimated hundreds of people from the World Trade Center after putting his own life on the line. He then became trapped under the debris from the tower for hours before rescuers managed to free him from the rubble. And here with us now to share his really amazing story is William Rodriguez.
I worked in the building for 20 years. I was the person in charge of all the stairwells of the North Tower. And on 9/11, I had the only master key that opened the doors that rescue people. This is the master key. They call it the key of hope. And basically, I was a janitor. Like I said, on that day, there was an explosion on the basement. And this is prior to the building got hit by the plane. And then the plane hit, and then there was a series of explosions afterwards.
Your story is so incredible. You've been to the White House 5 times. You've been honored by the president, President Bush. You've met Hillary Clinton. That must have been quite an honor for you.
It was an experience, definitely. And at that time, I was basically loaded to go into politics because they said this is the guy that we need to get the Latino vote. And I was playing the whole game of politics because I was doing the activism. And until the moment that I started to ask questions about what really happened on 9/11. And you may remember the whole thing about the 9/11 Commission to be formed, and basically became very active to get it basically started. And what a surprise. I was one of the persons that testified for the 9/11 Commission, and my testimony doesn't appear on the final report.
This is an aluminum model of one DU tank round. This round would be fired by an Abrams tank. If it was actually uranium rather than aluminum, it would be over 10 pounds of solid uranium. What happens, it moves extremely high velocity. The minute it leaves the bore of the gun, it catches fire. So this rod is a burning rod of uranium. It impacts tremendous forces, unbelievable forces, over this very small diameter. And it's like a blowtorch with tremendous forces that punches right through. Now, as this breaks through and goes into anything, it can be steel, concrete, sandbag bunkers, wood, or anything. Uranium itself is soft. So you have parts of the fragments of uranium breaks off as it enters and goes through. The uranium rod emits alpha, beta, and gamma radiation and X-ray radiation. The alpha particle is a 4.15 MeV particle. That's 4.15 million electron volts. Now, the intercellular voltage, the voltage that your cell operates biologically, is 10 electron volts. So when that cell is bombarded by an alpha particle at 4.5 million electron volts, it doesn't have a good day. We have all kinds of other problems. We have the beta particle and the gamma rays, the X-rays. Now, we've actually measured the ionizing radiation emissions from a DU rod within, say, 4 to 6 inches at over 300 millirems per hour. Now, that radiation is continuous. So you get a fragment of DU into your body that's emitting at over 300 millirems per hour. Or if you're holding the rod in your hand, it's over 300 millirems per hour. And if you got the fragment, then you got the alpha particle in there, which is an extremely hot particle, 4.15 MeV. And we're looking at what we measured over 10,000 counts per minute, 10,000 disintegrations per minute, 10,000 alpha particles per minute. In fact, in May of 2002, the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs reported that over 160,000 troops that participated in Gulf War I, the period August of 1990 through the fall of 1991, basically October and November 1991, have been classified as disabled from anywhere from 10 to 100%. Now, my own disability didn't come about until after May of 2002. The count right now is somewhere close to 200,000.
Serbia is launching a lawsuit against NATO over the bombing in 1999. According to their legal team, it used depleted uranium munitions, and these have allegedly caused the rise in cancer-related illnesses across the country over the last 2 decades. The legal team includes lawyers from Serbia, the EU and Russia, as well as China and India. The Serbian lawyer who will lead the lawsuit says that countries who were part of NATO at the time need to pay compensation for those affected by the alleged uranium munitions.
Why has Serbia decided to sue NATO after 19 years? The NATO bombing of Serbia in 1999 used between 10 and 15 tons of depleted uranium, which caused a major environmental disaster. I think it is never too late to sue someone for an environmental catastrophe.